So good afternoon, OCBC. Oh, that's lame. Good afternoon, OCBC. Show Alex how awesome this is. Give him a little bit of love. I want to briefly introduce the folks on this panel and then allow each of them a moment to tell you why you should care about what they have to say. We have some amazing expertise up here to not just talk about what you need to do, but importantly, what not to do. And so, in order, to my right and your left, we have Vincent Diacolti, the co-founder and COO of Show Companies. Please welcome. If you want to go ahead and give a minute. Vincent.
Hey guys, how's it going? Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. I'm the co-founder of Show Companies. I've been on the quest to build a family of brands, both ancillary and THC touching brands. We started in the industry about 5 years ago with brand Rosentech Products, familiarized to become one of the leaders in solventless extraction equipment. Continued on to garnish over a catalog of over 4,000 ancillary products, CBD, wellness. We also operate a distribution company in the state of California that manufactures and distributes in the state of California.
Right on. Thank you, Vincent. Next to Vincent, we have Mark Slaw, and he is the founder and CEO of IComply. Mark, tell us about IComply.
Thanks, Dale. Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Slaw. I'm CEO and founder of IComply. We're the oldest cannabis compliance company in the world. It's founded back in 2011. Been involved in Colorado and some of the early legislative stuff. We're based out of Denver. And we've helped over 200 clients in probably 13, 14 different national and international markets. We're active in about 10 different states. And what we do is compliance management, very similar to what you'll see in any other heavily regulated industry, whether that's hospitals, oil and gas, pharmaceuticals. There is a world to this cannabis thing, sometimes a four-letter word, known as compliance, which is important to be proactive rather than reactive about. So I'm here to really share with you guys what that experience looks like, what it looks like to unpack that buzzword of compliance, and really set up and manage appropriately an operational compliance infrastructure as a strategic partnership for your businesses.
Yeah, indeed, very true. And next to you, we have Mr. Rocco Petrilli, the chairman of the National Cannabis Risk Management Association. Rocco.
Thanks very much. The NCRMA, we're relatively new to the game. We've been around about 18 months and really active for about 14 of those 18. But we're a voice of our members. And our members are the owners and operators all along the vertical who are just finding out in many cases that good and effective risk management is very key to success in any business arena. Our message is very simple. Our mission is to make our members better, and we're committed to and in the process of creating a pioneering and disruptive and very innovative risk management platform that's going to fit this non-traditional industry like a glove. So we look forward to bringing that to our members and growing with this industry.
Thank you, Rocco. Next to you, Justin Botti. He is a partner at Calyx CPAs. Justin.
Yeah, so I'm a partner at a CPA firm based in the hills of Southern Oregon. Been doing business tax accounting, tax planning since 2006, self-employed. And we do a lot in the business advisory, entity formations, 280E mitigation in terms of the cannabis industry. Many of you are familiar with 280E and the complexity that brings. Then as well as we act kind of as a general contractor in terms of your accounting needs, payroll, bookkeeping, higher level accounting, taxes, tax planning, so those kind of things. We find solutions for you in that way. And I'm going to be talking about the tax consequences of strategic partnerships in this case.
Usually negative. Justin McCarthy on the end, and our hammer, the membership director for CCIA, of which many of you are members. Thank you for being here. Tell us a little more about yourself, Justin.
Awesome. Yeah, my name is Justin McCarthy. I was membership director for, except a couple of weeks ago. I do operations and business development.
Congratulations on, can we get a woohoo?
We've got an amazing membership team now, so I'm not having to do it by myself. But in short, I've been with the association for 5 years now. The association turns 7 next month. We do a lot of the legislative and regulatory work in Sacramento, so working very closely with state departments and legislative officials in terms of getting the situation we're in figured out. My side, with the business development, obviously work on a lot of our strategic partnerships, offering enhanced member discounts that our members can take advantage of, and giving them the education that they need to survive in the industry that is California.
Right on, thank you. And thank you for being here. I think that we realize that the success or relative failures of each of our opportunities, our business, often rests on who we choose as a strategic partner and how we go about forming that partnership. I've looked around, a lot of folks are suing each other, and it seems to boil down to 2 things: who you chose as a partner and what that contract looked like. But what is a partner? That's a very broad word, broad term, strategic partnership. So first I just want to explore with you guys real quick, because each of you come from a different aspect of the industry, what types of strategic partnerships you come across and what you're looking for in those partnerships. How do you vet them? I'll start here with Vincent.
So since we have an expansive catalog of about 4,000 products, some of them are in-house and others are obviously with partnerships. So I deal with partners every single day. My business is based on dealing with strategic partnerships. I can't operate my business without partnerships, after all. So for me, the biggest thing in a strategic partnership is sort of being like upfront and honest in the beginning if you're looking to be doing business for longevity. To me, anything you're hiding or leaving off the table will be exposed in the long run. So I think if you're able to just, whatever makes you think you're hiding something or you're uncomfortable of, lay it out, because usually it's not as big of a deal as you think, and if you lay it out in the beginning and you can iron those details out in honesty before you move forward, it's easier at that point rather than setting expectations in a way that you're leading someone on, kind of. And then you're just asking for disaster at that point, and that's why someone's going to sue you, and that's why they're not going to have a conversation with you to fix things, because you led them on in a demeanor that wasn't honest at the end of the day. So I think for me, the biggest thing in strategic partnerships is being upfront and laying it out on the line in the beginning, rather than trying to act like you're something that you're not.
Yeah, so be clear about what you're going to do, but also be clear about what you're not going to do. Yes. Right up front. Yeah, Mark?
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, without integrity, nothing works, right? So says the compliance guy. How many of you guys get more time in this industry? Yeah, I didn't think so. I always say, you don't get more time, you get more team. For me, that's what strategic partnerships are all about. There are things that he's going to be good at and loves to do that I'm not good at and don't love to do. But with more people around me to basically supplement and align vision, the more can be done in a way that actually works. And so I'm a firm believer that if you share the same vision, everything else is a conversation for workability. How do we achieve that vision? How do we set those goals? How do we make that happen? So we have somebody new that comes to us, for example, and says, hey, I want to be taking my compliance to the next level. I know I have gaps in it. I know I could do better. That's sort of what we need to hear and see and understand in any sort of strategic partnership where I'm going to put my time forward. So I'm not really here to waste anybody's money or my time, right? We don't get a lot more of that. But with strategic partnerships, you actually expand both of those things. So I like to think about it from that perspective. How do we put integrity in place? How do we set expectations in a real, honest, upfront manner? Absolutely. But also, how do we surround ourselves with people that share our same vision and are willing to put in the work to respect each other and to create something that's bigger than each of you individually? And I think that's what strategic partnerships are all about for me.
Yeah, right on. Justin, you look like you're about to jump out of your chair. You want to go next?
No,
I'll shake it up. We'll
no,
come back to Rocco.
Did you want to say something before?
Of course.
Rocco's always good for a comment. That's why I knew I could end with him. Yes.
Well, you know, I'm navigating. I quickly went from the young guy in the room to the old man in the cave, and I'm still trying to figure that out. But you know, with that 30 plus years in business comes a lot of wisdom, and you know, I'm about 2 years into cannabis and risk management after about 34 years in automotive components manufacturing, where I did and formed and worked with partnerships all over the world. So have a pretty good perspective of what worked and what didn't. And it really comes down to a good partner is going to believe your vision, they're going to share your mission, and they're going to live your core values. Everything else is secondary because, I have been involved in situations where there were technical reasons, there were geographic reasons, there were logistic reasons to form these partnerships, but they were all trumped by particularly the core values side. So anybody that's in the business, starting the business, new in the business, or been in the business for some time, if you don't have a vision, if you don't have a set mission statement, and if you don't have a set of core values that trumps everything you do in your business, I suggest you get them because those are really going to form the criteria for the partnerships that you form going forward.
Rocco, that's so well said, and I would dare say that that applies to every relationship in our life, most of which are strategic, whether it be personal or professional. So well stated, yeah. Justin.
So without repeating that Mark and Rocco definitely highlighted, businesses, it's difficult to be successful in business if you don't have partnerships. You're going to have partners, external partnerships. In this industry, it seems like it's almost essential to have internal partnerships as well. Many of you are looking for investment. Many of you are investing, so many of you need knowledge. Many of you need investment. It can be a tricky combination, but definitely choosing the right individuals is absolutely, with the right skill sets, is absolutely important. Successful businesses have many different leadership styles. There's many responsibilities, and you need to have those people that are sharing the various skill sets and complementing one another and sharing the same vision and subscribing to the values as well.
Justin.
Yeah, it's obviously hard to elaborate off of what they talked about, but for me, it's clear value add for our members. Is this going to be a partnership that benefits our membership base, and why? And then, so finding those areas are obviously important. And then once you find those areas, find people that align. Our mission statement is our guiding principles for everything we do. So if we're partnering with people that don't align with that, that's when things tend to get messy. So really, partnering with people that, it's not necessarily just a win for me and whoever the partner with, but I look for partners who are doing, good in their community, having more of a broad sort of benefit, as a nonprofit trade association is definitely something we look for.
Yeah, this is, strategic relationships, strategic partnerships are often a little bit like love. You fall in love with what you think that person can do for your business or what you think that business can do for your business. And we all know fools rush in, yeah? You think, oh, this is a great idea and we can build this business together. But then the failure to clearly articulate whose role is what and finding people that not only complement, but in some cases, fill those gaps that you actually are not good at the same things and don't think alike, because that can strengthen your business if the core values are the same. So as much as we can all talk about that perfect relationship that we always seek, how do you triangulate that relationship is who they say they are?
What you said just resonated with me, because there was many years in our company, we were 3 offices coast to coast. We had 20 employees. And a lot of our strategy was, well, let's just get people to realize how not compliant they are. And we would call and say, do you have these SOPs? And do you have this? Or do you have that? And what I didn't realize was we weren't really putting our core values out there to be shared in a way that aligned. And what we got were a lot of people that reacted to non-compliance, right? Rather than finding that 3 or 5% of the industry, the select few out there that wanted to be proactive about compliance management and be in a position where they could be proud about their compliance and say that we can stand by it. So that was a very expensive lesson to learn, that if you don't vet it out or you're not a stand for the values that you say you are in the world, you're just going to track the wrong thing instead. So there's something to the integrity of yourself, too, in finding out who to partner with or who to vet and how you work with them.
And I would add to that, trust
absolutely.
your gut.
Believe that, absolutely.
There, you don't always necessarily know why, but your subconscious does. Rocco.
And much of this responsibility really falls on the shoulders of leadership. You know, as a leader, it's important to really strive for clarity and alignment, and to force situations that where those things can be measured. I mean, I have, like I said, I've been around a long time, and I have what I fondly call Rocco's 10 rules of business, and one of them is what gets measured gets done. So you have to find a way to quantify. But before you can quantify, again, to get back in front of that, it's really the clarity issue. Because, you know, you can't just, as the other panel members were saying, I mean, you can't just say, these are my core values. You have to quantify those core values, and you have to be very clear. And the best way to show people you're clear is through demonstration, not through instruction. So that's key. And set that bar high. You only get one shot. You only get one shot. So when you get a chance to set that bar, set it high.
Yeah, I don't know the answer as far as how to vet people, because it's oftentimes it can be trial and error, but having a very good operating agreement up front, especially in a joint venture, is absolutely imperative. You definitely want to hire a lawyer. Don't do anything off of legal Zoom or copying and pasting a Word template off the internet when you're doing that, because they have the expertise to go through all the what ifs with you and then get those written down in detail of how are we going to handle this if this happens, and remember to hire slowly, fire fast.
Yes, fail quickly. Excellent advice. And you bring up an important point, because, you know, in a marriage, you take vows, and let's hope you're not vowing something that, you know, you're not going to stick to. But when you're entering into a business, you also have to make vows that these are the things that I am going to do in this partnership. This is my statement of work, what I'm responsible for. I also strongly recommend that you state what you intend to fail at, meaning this is what I'm not going to do. Because that's where the gaps often fall is, oh, I thought you were going to do it. You thought I was going to do it. Well, screw you. We're going to court. And that brings me to the prenup, right? The exit strategy. I've found when entering into strategic partnerships that envisioning the exit is the best way to get to the agreement. Where and how is this going to either sell or dissolve or achieve its goal, whatever the it is, and then work backwards from there. And I'd love for some of you to speak to that. How do you envision the exit strategy with respect to your strategic partnerships?
For me, honestly, in a lot of our partnerships, I think I scare away some partnerships in the early on stage, because I go straight to that end stage with people right away, or at least discuss it. I say, well, what are we talking about for 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line? How long are you online? How long are you committing to me? Are you 2 years? Are you in this for 5 years? Are you selling in 2 years? You need to ask those questions up front to really see what the partnership's going to be. You might have one idea of where this partnership's going, and their idea is a completely different thing, and you might start off and everything's great, but then where you're going is different, and that's a big problem. So I think, like, it's okay to scare someone away, because that just means it's not going to work out. So just be straight again, upfront and honest of where you're going with things to vet people out.
You know, and I like to take a different slant. And again, it's not always successful. I'm not claiming that it is, but I like to, what I call, create the Hotel California situation with partnerships. You know, you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. It's truly, you know, I like to make them perpetual. Because you should always be looking for a reason that you want your partner to stay, and your partner should always be giving you a reason that they want to stay, and vice versa. So it's always about creating value, and you know, when you get into a partnership, it's no longer all about you. So you have to spend a lot of time and effort in evaluating the value proposition of your partner as well as you. But you know, I don't spend a lot of time on predetermined exit strategies or termination clauses or periods of time. I like to spend the time and the effort on the evolution of a partnership that'll last or outlast the business.
And I think there's a combination of the two there that some people can find success in. Did you want to say something on the end, Justin?
Yeah, definitely. Just make sure that the relationship that you have with your strategic partner, the alignment of the mission statement, that is with the business and not the person, because as we've all seen in this industry, people move around often. I've worked on partnerships with somebody for 3 months and then give them a call back and they're no longer there. So definitely making sure that everything is clearly written down. I mean, a lawyer obviously, but yeah, definitely make sure that the partnership is with the actual business and not just a contact that you have.
It's a great point.
Yeah.
Absolute great point. Yeah, because so many people form partnerships because it's in part a personal relationship with a player, and then when that player doesn't show up to play first base that day, and then they're stuck because they realize it wasn't with the business. It was,
especially in this industry right now. I mean, people are moving so fast. We have to try to keep our database clean, and it's a full-time job almost, just with how much different movement is happening. So definitely.
If I ever clean out my shoe boxes of your business cards, I have your entire work histories. I know.
I was going to say the other point is get to know veterans who know people, because usually somebody knows somebody in this industry, and there's either going to be a reputation that's positive and you can count on that person being there in the future, or there's one that's maybe not so positive. And I think it's important to ask the peers that are in respected leadership positions whether you should be forming strategic partners with certain people, because it's taken us sweat, blood, and tears to build what we have as brands and reputation, which are things people can't take away, but they're also double-edged swords that can easily cut you if you hand somebody that in trust, right, and they turn it against you, or it's used in a way that that really is detrimental, rather than sort of adding value at all.
Yeah, Rocco?
yeah, and remember, I mean, because we're doing it at the NCRMA. I mean, our risk management platform is so broad that the vast majority of the risk management services that we're offering are through service partners. One thing to keep clearly in mind, I mean, you spend a lot of time and money and effort creating and protecting your brand. As soon as you bring a service partner on board, that person has to, or that company has to have the same obligation, because they become part of your brand. There's no separation at that point. You're my service partner and you do something wrong, that reflects badly on the brand of the NCRMA or whatever business we're talking about.
And it takes a certain level of commitment as a partner to be able to say, I'm going to be here for you in that. And I tell people, for example, my company, we take that stand. Integrity, excellence, leadership are our core values. And we're not here to make a one-time checkbox happen and say you're compliant. Compliance is, for example, an ongoing, continual process of continued improvement. It's not something that just magically happens overnight. So that's at least a year-long agreement with our clients, if not 2 to 5.
Because if you're the front, you own that partnership. I mean, there's no sidestepping the fact. Well, if you act for my benefit with my members and you don't perform, that's just like me not performing.
Indeed, and I think it's important too, as you look to these strategic relationships, that you find alignment in that the goal helps the people involved do better. The agreement itself, the partnership, the relationship has to raise all ships, or one of the partners is always getting screwed or doing more work or wanting to find a way out or find a way around. And so some of the more successful relationships I've seen aren't people that even necessarily like each other, but they have aligned common goals and they have a similar work ethic that when one wins, the other one wins. And I think that those are some of the most successful long-term relationships. I'm curious, because we all can talk about what to do. I want to hear what not to do. And you started tiptoeing down into this. Not only is this the more interesting and juicy topic of conversation, but at Oaksterdam, we're big fans of not just setting you up for success, but preparing you for the worst. There are a lot of potholes on the road to legalization and regulation, and you are likely to step in one. So how do you become a better bullshit detector, and what made you a better one? What terrible things are you hoping they don't accidentally do?
I think it comes into management styles for me, at least. I'm very tight, loose, tight. I will set the expectations up front, let people know exactly what I need, how I need it, and what I'll do for them in return. Then it's a game of integrity, right? Showing up with your word and actually doing it, because you said you would. But I also give that freedom and space for another conversation to happen, for things to happen, for business to happen, with the commitment of just trust, respect in place, right? Because you have to allow for people to show up and for people to lift you up instead of tear you down or whatever else they could end up doing. And it's in that loose space that I often find that I'm discerning most whether or not this is going to be a valuable strategic partner. And at that point, you can then come back to that tight on the other end of that, tight, loose, tight, and hold them accountable. In my world, accountability is love. That's how I want to make sure my clients are going to be successful, right? Because they have accountability, transparency, and integrity in their business. So for me, that's kind of how we like to operate, is to be able to at least create sort of a structure that we can figure that out. We can do that dance and figure out whether or not that strategic partner is going to be a waste of each other's time and money and not be successful, and it's much easier to break up at that point, or if you really can show up on the other end of that and take responsibility and do what you got to do.
Sometimes it's good to just say, you know, maybe this isn't the right time, but I want to be your friend. Let's wait until certain things happen. Yeah. Justin, you see a lot of strategic partnerships within the CCIA, and I'd love to hear a little bit and then go to Justin Botti right after. My Justin's on the end.
Yeah, I mean, we touched on this a little bit, but seeing partnerships be formed without the right documentation is really, really bad. Obviously, when I was new at this, you know, I formed a partnership for an event with a person that, you know, things weren't, the deliverables on both sides weren't clear, and the MOU slipped, things like that, and then, you know, then you're left to foot the whole bill, foot the whole event, foot the whole program, whatever it is. So obviously learned the hard way that way, and then just really making sure, yeah, that you know that their side of things, because you can be very clear with what you want out of the partnership, but really making sure that you're clear on what they want out of it, to be able to, you know, not just work for 6 months, but work for 3 to 5 years, because when it's very clear on both sides, people are, I mean, yeah, you don't necessarily have to like each other, but you're invested at, you know, a little bit deeper level than just a business perspective, when you truly care about what you're doing, and that slips a lot too.
So my experience, as far as this goes, often comes from the investor-operator relationship. There's the person with the money, and there's the person with the knowledge, and oftentimes the people with the knowledge leave with the money, and the people with the money leave with the knowledge. I don't know if you've heard that one before. So it's very important that as an investor, you stay active in the business. You get a hold of the bookkeeping, maybe cloud-based booking. You're always staying diligent as far as how the expenditures are going. You want to make sure that the policies and procedures are going correct. Again, there's people with different skill sets that should be being employed in any good, successful business. There's the people who are systems oriented. There's the visionary. There's the person who deals with the employees and it facilitates. You want all of those things going well, and as an investor, you want to stay involved in that to make sure that your money is being spent properly. And then the big thing that I like to warn people about, especially from an investor perspective, is oftentimes, this is totally like kind of going off in a different direction, but if you're considering buying a business, or you got to always take into consideration the tax ramifications of that.
I wanted to ask you
Yeah,
about that.
because like people think that like maybe buying a dispensary is a really great idea because it looks profitable on a cash flow, but just wait until that tax return gets done. It's really bad stuff.
Yeah, before you enter into any relationship with anyone or any entity, there are several tax organizations that you're going to want to double check their history, because you could be getting into bed with someone that did not understand 280E, and now you are marrying into their tax liabilities. Rocco.
You know, another point when considering a partnership, because many times when we consider partners, I mean, we approach it very much like we're hiring key employees or hiring employees. So a danger is, I mean, don't focus only on the cognitive, because, I mean, like many of us, guilty of it for years until I discovered the true value of talent optimization. But like many of us, you know, when we hire somebody, we interview them and we ask them the technical questions and we look at their resume and we check their references and all the cognitive skills are there. But the relationship doesn't work out because of, you know, the behavioral side, and we don't take the time and effort or implement the tools that we need to properly evaluate the behavioral side. I mean, it's like, you know, we're hired for what we know and we're fired for who we are. So it's equally important from a partner standpoint. You need to understand not only the cognitive skill set of your partnership, but also the behavioral skill set, because that's where it goes south. I mean, how many times has a partnership truly gone south because the person or the company that you partnered with didn't know what you thought they knew? Very seldom, because that's what we vet. What we don't vet is how they behave, what's important to them, how they're motivated, how they think, how dominant they are, how they communicate, patience or impatience, formality. So that's an area that I think we have to spend much more time on in developing partnerships that do become perpetual.
I was just going to say, don't be fooled by perception, and you should fact check, because sometimes you can lead into what people are saying and want to believe it, and that want to believe leads you to believe it rather than actually doing your homework and taking out the books and whatever factual evidence you need to make the right choice.
Well, thank you for that segue, because I would add to everything that you said, educate yourself. You know, do the homework to not just know your business, but their business. Know just enough to know what keeps them up at night. What are their goals and responsibilities in that strategic partnership? I try to explain to folks, well, I'm just going into the business of cannabis. I'm just going to be ancillary or just. Yes, but you have to know what the growers are dealing with, what the patients are dealing with in order to be truly the best dispensary, including your bottom line. So educating yourself on the entire supply chain, but also the rights and responsibilities. Is this person a fiduciary? Does this person have other responsibilities that you need to be aware of that might involve agencies where they're forced into certain behavior because that's what's required of them that you might not understand or expect as a cannabis business owner. I'm curious what keeps you guys up at night. I'll start with you. What keeps you up at night over your strategic partnerships?
I guess keeps me up at night is what, like, worrying about, or keeps me up at night? Okay, what?
No, I'm not going for the excitement part. Wow, that was awkward. Okay. What do you worry about? The 3 a.m. oh no.
I don't worry much. I sleep well.
I shouldn't have started with you.
Yeah.
Who wants to answer that? Go ahead.
I'll take a stab at it. So I got into this because I'm passionate about what cannabis can do for people, and in ending, right, the war on drugs and sort of the world of the advocacy side of things, like you did, Dale, back in the day, right? So there's a much bigger thing than me even involved here. And we just do the most boring, non-sexy thing in marijuana called compliance, because it's a stand for integrity and transparency and professionalism in our industry. So what keeps me up at night is that we're in this very unique and niche position in which we deal with the investor and the white-collar sort of world of things. And I don't just mean that figuratively. They're mostly like rich white men. And then there's the other side of it, which is the cannabis industry, where people came from for a lot of years going through the war on drugs and the war against cannabis. And I think what keeps me up at night is trying to get those two worlds to really understand and speak the same language and be able to communicate their sets of expectations to each other so that their strategic partnerships can work, because we actually need both for this thing to become what it can become. And so as a compliance person, I often think and worry about sort of what can we do with regard to social equity. I sit on National Cannabis Industry Association's Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Committee, being half Brazilian myself, doing a lot of work in Latin America. How can we raise other countries up that have been most impacted by the war on drugs? So some of these are what I'm looking for in strategic partners when it comes to aligning values and what you're really up to. But also, how can compliance become the dictionary, the thesaurus, the translator between those two worlds, and create that level of accountability and integrity that both sides need to be able to have with each other. And sometimes that's the only language, is the one written for attorneys, by attorneys, that we then need to translate throughout the rest of the organization and get into place in a way that is going to make those strategic partners work, right, and that business grow.
I love that you are reminding us all to be thoughtful about who we look for to partner, that it sometimes takes a moment longer to look a little harder to find a veteran, a person of color, a woman. I'm married to a white guy. I have 2 young sons and a daughter. I hope one of them turns into a rich white guy someday. But it's about seeking out the not obvious opportunities, and often these are going to be your best relationships for sure. Rocco.
You know, strictly from a professional and from a risk management perspective, what I find most challenging in tackling this elephant in the room is they're different from other industries of which I've played, that many of us have played, that they're much more traditional. There's really 2 types of risk in cannabis, and we were talking about this in the green room. There's the internal risk, which is the risk that is truly inherent in owning and operating a cannabis business. But then and if it was just simply left at that, we'd have the problem solved. But the real problem comes in is differentiating and defining the external risk. And that's all the risk that is inflicted on the cannabis business owner because they've chosen cannabis as a way to make a living. And we need to, from an association that focuses on risk management, we spend a lot of time differentiating those. And believe me, the latter is much more difficult in terms of coming up with service partners and solutions to help our members advance the ball.
Thank you. Justin.
Yeah, what keeps me up at night is definitely I want my clients to be successful, and it's the bureaucratic environment, the compliance environment. Sometimes it's almost like you have to break rules in order to also follow rules at the same time. I think in California it's like 90% of businesses are out of compliance right now, one way or another. And I can give you an example, like banking right now is very difficult to secure. It's very expensive. In my home region of Southern Oregon, there is no THC banking available unless you want to go to Salem, which is quite north. But then the the federal government requires that you pay certain taxes electronically. So how do you do that? Well, maybe you get a personal bank account, start commingling funds. I'd never recommend doing that, but how do you answer to all of these things? It's very difficult, and so that's what keeps me up at night.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, I think empathy, actually caring about the members, because when I'm forming strategic partnerships, it's to directly offer services, benefits to our entire membership base. So it's not just a partnership of mine, it's potentially a partnership of all 500 businesses that are involved. So really doing your homework and not forming a strategic partnership that's gonna, screw over a dozen members, and then it's gonna be a sticky situation and our credibility gets hit and everything like that. So it's a little bit different from an association standpoint because our partnerships are to facilitate partnerships. And when there's that snowball effect, if it's good, that's great. If it's bad, it could get messy.
Well, and I'd like to circle back to something that a couple of you touched on, which is that mission and understanding not just your mission, but the mission of your strategic partnerships. That a mission is not just something that you pay to etch on the wall behind you that people clock in and clock out as they walk by and ignore it and stop seeing it for years and years. Your mission statement is actually what you bounce all your decisions off of. Does this make sense? It needs to be a living, breathing decision of this is how we do business. You may also have a vision statement that helps you, delineate a few more things. But at the end of the day, that's not just something that you write down and put aside. That is what you can use to determine whether or not these strategic relationships or partnerships are beneficial to your core mission and your core goals. And for the school, our mission is to provide quality training for the cannabis industry. But at the end of the day, I bounce it off of 3 things every time. What's best for the students, what's best for the staff and faculty, and what's best for the school in that order. There might be something that's amazing for the students, and it will destroy my faculty and staff. If it's gonna kill the people that have to execute it, it's not a good deal, because these are the folks that you need to embrace and drive it forward. If those two things are there, but it's gonna break your bottom line, then maybe you need to bring in another strategic relationship, like an investor, or a CPA, or some tax advice. But if you can figure out that core goal and then bounce off, do you measure up to who we are, who we say we are, and what we say we're trying to do? I'd say 9/10 decide right then and there if this is right or not, and now you know who to focus on. And that last thing, I'm gonna say it again, decide what you're not gonna be any good at. This is one of the most valuable lessons I am still trying to learn. So many shiny objects, so many amazing people, and some of these shiny objects are gold. They are raw diamonds, and some is fool's gold, right? So I'm not saying shiny objects are bad, but if you have a way to pan for the gold, that is your mission. These are your core values. That helps you pan for the gold just like you, to know this can be successful. We can do this together, and it will be good for everybody. With that, it is now 4:25. I think we nailed it, folks. And I just genuinely want to thank the audience, everybody that was here for participating in this. Thank you so much for being part of our panel. Have a beautiful afternoon. Yeah, absolutely. We'll stick around. Question or two.